Wahm. Belief in Jinn is an important aspect of Islam and is important for understanding the Muslim worldview. The Jinn phenomenon is multifaceted and complicated in expression, with Jinn being able to take on many different forms and act in complicated ways. Jinn possession can be related to several psychological syndromes and diagnoses. In the Islamic world, traditional methods of dealing with Jinn possession can be integrated into psychological treatment to facilitate personality integration in the possessed person. Similarly, a psychological understanding of Jinn phenomenon might inform those performing Islamic exorcism or Quranic healing. In this episode, I will turn to the referred sources and explore areas like Jinn belief, the origin, nature, and the place of Jinn, Jinn possession, exorcism, the Wahm or self-illusion, the role of suggestion, human personality, and modernity. My name is Balazs Polyanki, and this is Mysterium Tremendum. The phenomenon of possession is found throughout the world and is often associated with shamanic beliefs and practices. Possession by spiritual entities, demonic influence have been with us for thousands of years. Beliefs about demons or demonic-like beings have persisted into our current era. A good example is the traditional Islamic belief in Jinn. These are beings who are separate and distinct from both humans and other spiritual entities, such as angels, in the Islamic tradition. Belief in Jinn and interaction with these beings play an important role in Islam, as well as in the psychology of Muslims. Belief in Jinn is inherited from the pre-Islamic Arabs, who held several animistic and spiritualist beliefs, including the belief in demonic spirit beings, who were able to appear in human form and to possess humans. The word Jinn comes from the Arabic al-Jinn, which means something that is hidden, covered, or concealed. Angels are said to be made from light, and humans from dirt and clay, while the Jinn were created from smokeless flames. They are thought to be closer to heaven than earth, and often, when they are close to heaven, overhear the lower orders of angels, who have in turn overheard higher orders of angels, who have heard the word of Allah. The Jinn have the divine truth, and when they come down to earth and whisper these overheard truths to people, along with 100 lies. In this way, Jinn distort the words of Allah to deceive humans. Jinn can take any form they like. They are responsible for medical and psychological problems, such as the plague or the evil eye. They are also responsible for natural disasters, such as sandstorms, which are caused by Jinn fighting each other. However, Jinn can sometimes be beneficial, providing poets with inspiration and seers with prophecy. The Quran includes a chapter devoted to Jinn and warns against the polytheistic worship of them. Jinn are taught to live in human-like societies where they can marry and have children. Many jinn are non-threatening. However, the further away their association with Islam is, the more evil they become. They do not interact much with humans. However, they can be mischievous, especially if they come across a lone human. They can act like a poltergeist, causing a person to become frightened or nervous. Jinn are also quick to anger, and this can cause accidents. An angered jinn may hit someone, causing them to fall, or if they are very angry, they trigger an epileptic seizure. Jinn can cause illness and are sometimes blamed for infertility and difficulties in bearing children. There are ways people can live peacefully with jinn, which have become part of the daily life in Islamic countries. Saying Bismillah, in the name of God, before crossing the threshold of a home, drawing water from a well, or pouring hot water down a drain, announces to any jinn present that the person is a believer. Family members and house guests are not left alone for fear that they may be harassed by jinn. Jinn can be pacified, for instance, by sacrificing a chicken when moving into a new home. The blood of the chicken functions as a gift. Jinn like the smell of incense, so keeping this burning makes them happy. There are 3 types of jinn, according to one categorization. There are Muslim jinn, who cause the least trouble, Christian and Jewish jinn, and pagan jinn. Christian and Jewish jinn can hit people, cause serious accidents and illness, and possess people. Pagan jinn are the worst type, amplifying the troubles caused by Christian and the Jewish jinn. The general belief is that jinn can possess humans and take control of their bodies. Many Islamic traditions have specific exorcism traditions to remove possessing jinns from their human hosts. Possession can manifest in various physical, psychological, and spiritual ways. Physical aspects of possession may manifest as the ability to lift heavy things or run very fast. Both men and women may have epileptic seizures and speak in tongues. Psychological issues can include depression, anxiety, hysteria, mania, Tourette syndrome, schizophrenia, general destructiveness, and perhaps most importantly, dissociative disorders. It is common in Islamic nations to attribute many of these mental health issues to jinn possession, even by physicians and other educated people. Mass media can play a significant role in shaping belief in and perception of demonic possession, with movies like The Exorcist and The Exorcism of Emily Rose that center around the phenomenon of demonic possession. There have also been a number of films that concern jinn directly, such as Jinn, Magi, Red Sands, or the Wishmaster series. Mass media may prime people to attach supernatural explanations to many types of phenomena. Likewise, those who already believe in the supernatural will seek out media with supernatural content, presumably to reinforce their beliefs. In 2011, the Egyptian Al Nahar channel aired a show titled Sabaya al-Khair, meaning Good Girls. In one episode, a Quranic healer arrives to a town north of Cairo to investigate 2 cases of jinn possession. They consider 4 possibilities related to them. 1. It can be a so-called Wahm, that is self-illusion, that is reportedly very common nowadays. 2. It can be an Iha, a powerful suggestion. 3. It can be deceit, when they are just pretending the possession. It's a lie. Or 4. They can be real cases of jinn possession. The Al-Ilaj bil-Quran, the Quranic healing, is a revivalist, Salafi-oriented form of exorcism. It emerged in the 1980s as the most popular jinn cure in Egypt. Jinn possession, just like demonic possession in other cultures, has typical symptoms ranging from seizures to hallucinations to nightmares or glossolalia, fear, sadness, and sudden behavioral changes. As for Wahm, or self-illusion, Egyptian experts say it is prevalent these days. It is a state of a person who exhibits what are taken as real possession symptoms, while it is not the case, but unconsciously the person is convinced he or she is possessed. It has its own etymology and treatment within a therapeutic ecosystem. During the last 12 years, the Quranic healing led to debates, especially among psychiatrists in Egypt. Self-illusion represents an alternative explanation to the classic jinn possession versus mental disorder binary approach. In a 2013 TV program called Afarit Akhir al-Zaman, meaning The Demons of the End of Time, was aired on the religious satellite channel called Amjad. Sheikh Ibrahim, whose nickname is the Wahm Guy, started to be spreading knowledge about self-illusion among Egyptians. According to Ibrahim, only 1% of those who are diagnosed as possessed have jinn possession, and the remaining 99% are cases of Wahm. This is significantly different from what the Quranic healers state in Egypt. They say that 5% is Wahm, or pretending, and 95% are real possession cases. Ibrahim was 12 years old when he went fishing and he found a hidden bundle of sorcery books in a Nile Delta village. He started to read about jinn possession, and he observed the healers in the village. Later, he moved to Cairo and worked as a full-time healer himself. He started to criticize other healers who were usually asking for symptoms and then immediately saying, "You are possessed." He says there were too many possessed people. He started to think this was not real possession. He realized that 2 main factors played the most significant role: the healer's practices and the patient's psychology. So he started to read up on psychiatry. He was experimenting with new techniques on his patients and attended psychiatric workshops in Saudi and Egyptian hospitals. The more he read and saw his patients, the more he became dissatisfied with both Quranic healers and psychiatrists. One side was only talking about possession, the other only about mental disorder. There was nothing in the middle. On top of that, what is making that worse is that television is always opposing the two. In Islamic tradition, there's been a doctrinal discussion for centuries about the jinn's empirical manifestations and ability to possess humans. Since the 19th century, in modern times, the jinn are seen as superstitious and unscientific. The Wahm approach Ibrahim formulated is inserted into the gap between jinn possession and mental disorders. It offers an alternative answer to the question of the definition of possession. In everyday life, the term Wahm refers to mistake ideas, unreasonable superstitions, imagining things, or lying to oneself. In psychiatry, it is part of the construct for hypochondriasis. In other words, Wahm presupposes a concept of reality, in other words, an exterior truth separated from a false internal idea. In Ibrahim's definition of Wahm, the exterior and real symptoms of possession, the real feelings, are contrasted to the interior and false belief that one is possessed. That is an unreal conviction. What is central here is the generative power attributed to the mind, to the false conviction of possession. Even if untrue, it can make one's body sick. This distinguishes Wahm from another condition, the fake symptoms, when the person is only acting or playing the fool. This shows how Wahm is linguistically related to hypochondriasis. Ibrahim brings psychology into the form of the role of beliefs and the psyche into the realm of Islamic healing, while keeping the ontological reality of jinn possession intact. In this way, Wahm emerges as an alternative avenue, a third way through which patients can make sense of their suffering. Wahm can be defined as real feelings based on an unreal conviction. Ibrahim explains that the suggestion plays a significant role in Wahm that comes through the Quranic healer's communication, unconsciously prompting the patients to act certain ways. They apply suggestive words and gestures, they touch their patients with the Quran, or they have conversations with the jinn. Such words and gestures lead patients to believe they are possessed. Moreover, suggestion is generated through the atmosphere of healing sessions, marked by the screams of the possessed and their contorted bodies. It really is like watching a horror movie. Ibrahim, however, highlights that the employment of suggestion coming from the healers is unintentional and only gains force because of the surrounding jinn culture that is full of jinn stories circulating in the society. Stressing that healers are lack of awareness frees them from the charge of charlatanry directed by psychiatrists and others who often portray them as manipulators of naive people. The role of suggestion is often unrecognized by the religious practitioners, spiritual healers, and the society as a whole. The jinn-related cases, occult events like jinn possessions and practices and beliefs around them don't seem superstitious anymore, as they are explained through psychological mechanisms, namely suggestion. While suggestion is only one of the two vectors in Ibrahim's approach, he takes the patient's personality into account as well, as they may have a predisposing factor that allows suggestion to take root and flourish to become autosuggestion. We know that suggestion has its effect mainly on the unconscious mind. This is where we can find all of our unexpressed emotions and desires. Emotive, anxious and weak personalities can be predisposed to feel and act in certain ways. Based on Ibrahim's observation, women have them more frequently than men. 2/3 of his patients are women. According to Quranic healers, women are more vulnerable to jinn possession. Ibrahim explains this as a psychological outcome of Egyptian women's upbringing and societal roles, not their inherent nature. On a side note, I want to mention two French physicians who established the Nancy School, Jean-Martin Charcot and Hippolyte Bernheim, who transformed hypnotism and suggestion in the main psychotherapeutic method in the second part of the 19th century. Suggestion is the term referred to the process of inducing ideas, sensations, or actions in a person without their awareness. It is important to understand because a suggestion provided a way of thinking about the mind-body connection and the psychic explanation of certain physical manifestations for which the relationship between the patient and the healer was central. Jean-Martin Charcot himself had a keen interest in demonic possession, which he interpreted as a form of hysteria. Although suggestion lost its central role as a clinical concept in the early 20th century, many doctors, religious reformists adopted it in their practices. Ibrahim highlights the role of suggestion while, instead of seeing it as a tool for denying possession, as it is for contemporary psychiatrists, he keeps the category of Jinn possession intact, leaving the phenomena of Jinn possession as a multifaceted suffering. Ibrahim realized that his patients are not fully transparent to themselves, and he believes that it's not his job to analyze the structure of the psyche and uncover unconscious conflicts. His role instead is to remove suggestion by revealing it for what it is, reorienting patients' dispositions, and facilitating the cultivation of virtues such as gratefulness, humility, patience, or submission. He observed his patients mostly exhibit the opposites: discontentment, desire, or material goods, self-involvement, individualism, and despair. This makes them vulnerable to falling to prey to the suggestion of healers and hence to Wahm. Finally, Ibrahim highlights that materialism, consumerism, and secularism make believers vulnerable to Wahm as well. In this sense, Wahm can be considered as the manifestation and outcome of the illusory modernity.